Welcome to the BSGN Blueprint podcast. I'm Anya and I'm here with the amazing Sister Circle.
Hey guys, and Kiro.
You got Jane, a double dose of Jane. Just gotta make them chuckle, you know how it is. So you're here today on this week's episode, and we're going to be talking about mum guilt. We're going to literally just delve into it because I feel it, and I'm here with my sisters, and I know that it's a real thing, like it really happens. Talk to me, Anya, how does it feel for you?
How does mum guilt feel for me? Ugh, gosh, I feel like ever since I've become a mum, which feels like my whole life, it has, it's been that niggling thing. One thing about it though, obviously having my daughter young, I felt an kind of an overwhelming sense of it, but I really used that and channeled it into making sure that, it's going to sound really sad, that I wasn't an embarrassment to her or that she didn't go without in comparison to her peers. So I spent a lot of time, I don't know if it was overcompensating, and maybe it was, because when I compare my son's, not treatment, but my son's experience to my daughter's, I can see that a lot of it was me overcompensating. So I made sure she did ballet, tap, horse riding, ice skating, air cadets. She did everything. Okay, so we had like a packed agenda, played the viola, played the piano, made sure that she had enough, because I at the time didn't feel like I was enough. For my son, it's very different, and it's so weird because my kids will say, like my daughter will say, oh my gosh, he's never experienced hardship, like his life is so easy. I'm thinking, you had everything. My son, like he's got a nice timetable, so he does his tuition, was doing music lessons, football, etc. But I don't feel that same need to overcompensate. And I now am more inclined to say no to things. With her, I felt the pressure to really say yes. And I know that was a lot to do with me feeling guilty in that I didn't feel like I was enough. But yeah, like I said, with my son, completely different. I actually really enjoy saying no. Yeah, I do, and I enjoy having my time, and I've been able to balance it a lot more instead of giving him everything, because I know that's not what you should be doing with children. Thank God it worked really, really well with my daughter, and she's a very, very rounded individual. And I think a lot of it goes with knowing your children as well. If I gave this boy everything, it would damage him. For her, it's done the complete opposite. But the mum guilt, I don't feel it as much as I did now that they're older. But I do still have moments like going on holiday and taking trips on my own. The first day I feel like, oh, this is so bad. And then I get completely over it because I realise that it's going to help me. And when I go back to them, I'm going to be a better woman for it. So.
With me, mum guilt, I think, definitely years and years ago, I used to suffer from mum guilt. But now I do have a full understanding of the fact that I can't pour from an empty cup.
100.
So I do travel every year with my girlfriends, with my husband, without my children. And I do take time out for myself to do things that I like to do. I think the mum guilt piece really came into play when I had a corporate career, because I wasn't in charge of my own time. And I was always busy trying to impress my bosses. So I was working later. That meant I was late to pick up the kids from nursery, always running. When they have, say for example, they had a school play and sports day in the same week, I had to pick one out of the other. Or if it was like a parents' evening and I'm running late and then my husband's giving me the eye like, can't you leave work for this one thing? So I had to juggle a lot. What being an entrepreneur has given me is that freedom of time. It's given me the time to juggle things around my family. So my family's, their priorities, their schedule, football, tuition, everything they do takes priority. And I've recently started doing something quite different actually, because I noticed that my boys just needed a bit more of my time and my husband's time. So I just make sure that my day, I just work school hours. Because I had a nanny for a period of time and that wasn't working. And I think that's very important. So for me, mum guilt is less about being away from the kids and just being present.
Yes.
Because you could be at home, but you're not present.
Yeah.
So for me, that's very, very important to me. And it's not just mum guilt. any relationship I value, if I'm not present, that weighs heavy on me.
Yeah.
So if I haven't spent quality time with my mum or my nieces and my nephew or my best friends or whatever it is, I make sure I schedule time in, or just arrange trips for us to just reconnect, and that's very, very important to me. So I don't feel guilty having to work, because as I said in a previous episode, my parents, they worked there all my life. That's all I know, and that's the reason why I am the way I am. And it's also afforded my children opportunities that they wouldn't have if both parents didn't work. So I don't feel mum guilt because I have to work. It's more about if I've got too much on, that I'm not present for my children. So I make sure that I just balance my time, and I'm very, 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 very intentional about that. So my team know they won't schedule certain things in after a certain time because Jane needs to go and pick up her children, or she can't have back-to-back late meetings because Jane has to pick up her children. And I'm very good at saying no, not just to my children, but to other people. So if you would notice, if there's too many BSGN activities or things in a week, I'll say no. And I don't feel guilty about that because I run about 5 other businesses. So if I say yes to BSGN every day of the week, then what about the other things that I need to do? So it's just, diary management and making sure that I just color code everything that I'm doing within a week. If there's too many things disproportionately in one activity, I need to balance my time. I need to balance my time a bit better. But
How about you next?
I think for me, when I think about mum guilt, it's not something I experience often. But I suppose it presents itself in different kind of ways as well. Like, I'm not someone that would feel guilty about leaving my children to go on holiday or take some time for myself. The reason why I don't feel guilty about that is because I know I can't show up for my kids unless I'm mentally okay, physically okay as well, to keep up with them. I've got 2 young boys, so I need to have that time for myself in order to pour back into them. I recognise that, and I recognise that quite early. And because of the type of parent I wanted to be, I knew that in order for me to achieve that, I have to set some time out for myself and do things outside of being a mother. And it's so interesting because prior to having my son, I thought that being a mother would complete me. I really thought that I was destined always to be a mother, and once I became a mother, that would be it. I would have met my purpose in life. And after having him, I realised it didn't fully, and that was okay. And in recognising that, I realised there was still so much more I wanted to accomplish. I realised there was so much more to my purpose, and I love my children, but my children are only one aspect of me. There's so many other variations to me, which include things that are outside of my children. And for me, I think that's fine. I think that's great, actually. I think that's what makes me who I am, and I enjoy who I am. I think for my boys, when I think about how I want them to be, there are key principles and key values that I want to instill in them, and that means me having my eye on certain things. That also means being able to provide for them, because I'm a single parent, and so I'm raising 2 black boys on my own. And that comes with sacrifice. There's a lot of things in which where I've had to sacrifice because of the position I'm in. And I'm happy to do so because I love my children. I've always wanted to be a mother, but I recognise the fact that that's not all I am, and we're constantly being compared to women, and there's nothing wrong. In fact, women that decide to be homemakers and stay at home and that to pour into their children on a daily basis, kudos to you.
It's lovely.
I think, that's such a beautiful thing.
I'm aspiring to that too.
In a different season, maybe.
But you know what? I feel like even if I had the means to, I don't know whether I would want to.
I know I personally couldn't.
Okay, do you know what I mean? I don't know.
I'm undecided.
A lot of
Really?
people
I'm
couldn't.
undecided.
I would love to be a lady of leisure and just look after my home, be a homemaker. Like, everyone says to me, Jane, you could never do that. You have to rest out. Well, you don't know me. I would love to just be able to just clean my house and organise everything.
Definitely, right?
Oh, it's a dream.
Really?
Yeah, love
But
to just look after my kids, do school run. Okay, let's
Are
sit
you
down, let's do
sure?
homework. Let's do. Oh yeah,
I've done school run for like over a decade. Nearly
More than?
yeah,
No,
more
no,
than
more
two
than.
decades.
I
Yeah,
won't do
the
the
way
school run,
I
but-
couldn't wait. Yeah, until my son got to year 6 in school.
Could
It's
take
like
himself to
minute,
school.
a minute walk. I was like,
Bye.
like, it is the most rewarding feeling that school run is done. I can't stand
I
school
think
run.
I will miss it.
Really?
Though.
No,
Yeah,
you
we have
won't.
we have a lot of chats in the car that are so fun.
Okay,
And we
okay,
have a
that
lot
bit,
of banter
yeah,
in the car and a lot
but,
of mischief in the car. So I think I'll miss that. I will.
yeah, that I don't miss at all.
Do you know? I think I enjoy school run now because I couldn't do it for so many years.
Okay,
maybe.
maybe that's it.
When I worked in the corporate world, I never was able to pick. I never picked my daughter up from school ever at 3 o'clock.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's
Ever.
Yeah.
The fact that I can actually be outside the gate when it's time to pick up my children is a privilege that I just relish now. I could never do it before. So it's an everyday thing for so many people, but it's something I really cherish now.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, my boys don't have to have dinner so late because they've gone to after school club.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, you know, women who have to do that, I've been in that position, so I completely understand it. But I'm just saying, for this season of my life, I desperately wanted to do it. And I'm just grateful to God I could do it now.
Yeah.
Because my boys are the last children I'm going to be raising.
Yeah, this is it.
Well, you don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, I just really want to just cherish every moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that. I'm 100% with you on that. Even though my kids are so young and I'm still like fresh to this whole parenting thing, I'm like, I just want to be present.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I'm here in the room, they're gonna like, I will stop everything as soon as I get home. My computer is not turning on until they're in bed. Just like every minute I'm with them, it's like, hey, what do you want to do? We know that we're going to be doing homework at 5 o'clock, but before then, what do you want to do? We're outside. We're outside most of the time. It's not the TV's on. You're there. If I'm there and you're there, we're doing something active. My son does a lot of baking. He'll be like, Mum, can we bake a cake? And I think one of my friends came around the other day, Perry. It's just like, Jay, it's random. Like, it's a Wednesday. You're just going to bake a cake. And I was like, yeah. Well, we just had dinner. Let's have a cake. And it's just like, you're just going to bake. And I was like, what cake do you want? And they were like, carrot cake. I was like, let's make up a carrot cake. And we do that stuff, you know, because I'm like, I'm present. Let's use this time. And obviously with the nature of my job, I'm away a lot of the time with work. And like you, I cherish the school runs because I'm like, okay, I can do it this day. So tomorrow morning, I'm like, right, I'm doing a school run because I know I can start a bit later. This morning, Chris was like, can you do school run? I need to cut my hair. I was like, sure.
Yeah.
I said, I've got to be there. Like the patient's going to be on the table 9 o'clock. Let me squeeze. If I drop in by 8:30, then... But I'm like, if I can make it happen, I'm going to make it happen. But yes, sometimes it does kind of compromise on me and makes me a bit stressed. But I'm like, actually, in this moment, I'm happy. But there are instances where I can't be there.
Yeah.
And it might be a long stint where I don't see them for a few days.
Yeah.
Now, these are children I gave birth to, but I'm not with them. And that's because, like you said, when you're in the corporate world, sometimes your time is dictated
Yeah.
by others.
Others,
you know?
yeah.
And I don't like that element. Although I manage my own schedule, I know there's a patient on the table sometimes waiting for me. But anything I'm going to be present for, I want to be present. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
That was part of the reason why I changed my occupation.
Yeah,
So obviously I was modelling for a long time and then dabbled in lots of other bits as well, just trying to really find out what it was I wanted to do. But then when I had my son, I remember saying to myself, you need to be present and doing what you're doing, modelling, flying here, doing that. My mum had also moved to Australia at the time. I was like, something's got to change. And I remember speaking to my best friend at the time and she was telling me about her lecturer who was young. I was like, oh, I could do that. And then I went and I retrained. And then what it gave me, even though obviously working in education, you're in really early, and so you do have to access a breakfast club or after school club. But what it gave me was the holidays. And those holidays, my children got real quality time from me. And yeah, for me, that was a game changer for having 2 children and not necessarily having that flexibility and still needing to make a decent income at the time. And I would never go back. Another thing I would probably never go back to, but who knows? Like, I don't like to like put things like firm, is full-time work as well. Like for me, I remember when I went down to part-time was when my son was about maybe 4, when he had just started school. So I'd done 1 year full-time and I was like, for me as a mother, this isn't working out. If I was similar and was an entrepreneur and had my own business, I could juggle things, but working in an organisation. I was like, I actually need, even if it's just that Friday, to be able to firstly take my son to school. Those times I enjoyed the school run, but I'm done with it now. Or even if it was just to have a day for myself or to sort out my house. But it was like working back to back to back to back every single day and raising 2 children who had very different needs because they were different ages, and trying to be present was not easy. So changed my whole profession to maybe avoid that mum guilt. I think it was to avoid that.
I think we all suffer from it. I mean, when you're juggling so many things, you can't be excellent at everything. And when you feel like your motherhood is being compromised, ultimately you're going to feel guilty. I remember we were on a call last week, and then the lady asked, what do you do as a profession? And my son said, she does school run. And then I was laughing to myself, but I felt such a sense of achievement and warmth that's what he thinks I do, because my daughter, she would tell you, Mummy's doing this, she's doing this, she's doing this. Even my 10-year-old would say, Mummy's doing this, but the fact that he feels that my whole everything is about him. It just instantly made me feel like, God, I'm doing something right this time.
That's lovely. Do you know what, for me, like at the moment, so beginning of the year, I was like, right, I'm only going to work 2 days a week. And I had, my job's flexible and obviously I manage my own schedule, so that's fine. And now it's ramped up to 4 days a week. I'm like, okay, but I'm like in the back of my mind, like my daughter's at home with a lady that isn't her mum, and she spends if she's at nursery, it's different, but she's at home with this lady who's a nanny. She's lovely. She loves like Naya to bits, don't get me wrong, but I'm just like, that should be me. Like, that's my daughter. I chose to have her. She didn't choose to be born. I don't feel the guilt because I'm like, actually, I make time like to spend with her. So I know at least 1 day a week I'm going to be home. I'm going to be present with her. But it's not so much my job. It's because I then chose to do my PhD, manage 3 other businesses. That wasn't my child's choice. That's not fair. And I feel like I've chosen to do all these things that it shouldn't mean that my children should miss out. So when I'm like, okay, mum guilt isn't there, but I'm very aware that I'm doing all this stuff. So I'm like, I actively make time. So again, equally when you're like, oh, BSGN meeting, BSGN, I'm like, okay, I can do it, but it has to be after they're in bed. So I'll be like, right, after 7, happy. After 8, I'm happy. We can do it anytime. But that's why I'm very intentional with, okay, can it be at this time? Can it be on this day?
Yeah, or nothing on a Sunday.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's what we do. We put blockers there to make sure that we're still giving and pouring into our families and that they don't feel neglected, even though we're aspiring and we're doing something purposeful. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, for me, because I'm just trying to think about those, why you would feel the guilt in the first instance.
Do you know why? It's when the children become a bit more aware. So I think it's even when they're older and they're self-sufficient, fine. But when they just get to that stage where they're aware that you're not there, and they'll say, like my son said the other day to me, I was going to a wedding, and he said, Mummy, when you go, I don't miss you, but I miss Daddy. And I actually really felt sad.
That is painful.
Yeah, my bottom lip hung out like that. And I went, okay, so he's obviously very comfortable that I'm away most of the time. So then he saw my bottom and said, oh no, Mummy, I do miss you sometimes. So when I left today to come here and record, he was like on the phone, he went, Mummy, I miss you.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's very emotionally intelligent.
Bless him. So he realised that
they're getting older, they're now acknowledging things, and I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to feel it, whereas I didn't feel it before. It's now that he's older and he's acknowledged. And the other day, he had sports day for the first time ever. Again, Chris was like, FaceTime. He was like, oh, he's looking for you. And I was like, well, put me on the video and he could see me, but only now because he's aware. So when you said, what makes you feel it? Before I didn't, because I was like, I've put everything in place. I've got the nanny. I've got, he's not going to miss out on anything. We do activities. I take enough time off. But now I'm like, okay, he's becoming aware of this. So.
Yeah, I think the same thing with me. I felt the mum guilt for me was when I had a nanny for a period. I think it was a term actually. Yeah. And my sons were going through, my eldest boy was going through challenges at school. And my nanny was saying to me, he's very moody these days. My boys are very expressive, very, very, very expressive boys. And she said, he's very, moody. He's very moody. He doesn't talk much. And I noticed straight away that that's not my boy.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that the kids go through that they only want to open up to their parents.
Yeah.
And even the first time you probe them, they're not going to say it. It's after a while, and it's only by you being present and noticing certain changes before you get to identify what's really going on with your children. And I just realized that, you know, if I'm going to be just investing so much, because obviously I work with children and young people, I'm just pouring into other people's children.
Definitely, yeah.
And not my own.
Yeah, that's how I felt when I was teaching.
yeah.
Hence the reason for going part-time. I was like, I'm giving all of this to not that I didn't love what I was doing, but as I know from working in education, you can see children who are not getting that love at home. So for me, it was very important that before the children in my class, who I see as my kids, or I saw as my kids, my children are getting everything that they need from me.
Exactly.
And obviously this was my choice to have them. And the other thing as well about having children as well, is that these children are going to grow up to become people and to become adults. And when they haven't had the love and the care, and obviously other things can go wrong, but you don't want them to still be children forever. Do you know what I mean? And be dependent on you for a really, really long time. So it's really important that you are giving them that time, also able to say no, and also allowing them to see you as a role model and to see, okay, for me, or for you to have the life that you have, there's certain things that I have to do. And certain times I do have to remind my son of that, because obviously my job now is very, very different. And it's flexible, but I have meetings in the evenings, do you know what I mean? Or I'm out, I'm here, I'm there. And certain times he'll make a comment. I'm like, but you like nice things. This is, if we're going to maintain this standard, mummy has to do these things and you get this time. And I do not feel guilty about it at all, because I would feel more guilty because I remember the times when I didn't have. Do you know what I mean? I remember and I don't want to ever have to experience that again. So I understand that certain things I have to do for the income and for my own mental health as well.
Yeah. And you know what? That was the point I was going to touch on, because what helps me not to feel the mum guilt as well is I explain to my boys. And I'm like, mummy has to work in order to provide. You know, we go on holidays, you have nice things. When you ask for things, I'm able to afford those things because I'm working.
And you choose to say no, not because you have to say no.
Exactly. That's it. And have that balance so you can see. And also I want them to see what hard work actually looks like, you know, and going out and working every single day and coming back and still working and then still looking after you, so that when they grow to be young men, they would be like, no, I actually know what it looks like, as we've all spoken about in previous episodes, from our own role models, being back at home and seeing actually, I saw my parents work extremely hard. So why wouldn't I then work extremely hard? I know what it looks like. And I want them to see that. And I'm also wanting them to be exposed as well. So I'm very intentional about the time in which we spend, and I want for them to experience different things. I don't know, I have it in my head that I don't want my children to be influenced by what they see outside. I want them to be influenced by what they've experienced and what they've see within me as their parent and their role model. So I want my children to be able to say, no, that's not true because I've been there, or that's not true because my mum has already
seen it.
I've seen it, and stuff like that, rather than being follow,
and being phased by things as well.
So in a way, I chalk it up to there's a purpose. There's a reason for the madness. There's a reason for why I'm not there. I'm able to give this. And yes, right now I'm not present, but what actually they're seeing by me not being present all the time is a hardworking mum.
Some of your sacrifices.
Definitely.
I hear that. I think for me, my thing is, like, ultimately, it's all down to our maker, right? God is the only dictator, the author. It's his story. We're here for his glory. I'm a rapper all of a sudden. but on a real, like, we don't know what tomorrow looks like. And I think for me, that's why I always intentionally try not to offset one thing for the other. I'm not going to say, I'm going to graft this much so my child has everything they need. Because then if all they needed was me and I wasn't there and I couldn't give, they have all the riches, but they needed time with me. I can't give them that. So I always try to, in my mind, try and put a balance there where I can. That's why I think, like, okay, the mum guilt, yes, it's always going to come when that balance is off. But then I always, like, you know what, there's other mums, there's other people in your situation. And ironically, in my job, there's only me and one other girl that has children that does our role.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I called her today, ironically. I called her and we hadn't spoken for about 3 years. She said to me, oh, I tried to call you when I came back from maternity leave, but then they said you were on maternity leave. And during maternity leave, I switched my work phone off. She didn't have my private number. So then I said, I just want to check in on you and see how you were. And she was like, oh my God, Jane, thank you for calling. She was telling me all the stuff she was going through when she came back. And I was like, no way. I was like, now I'm back. I'm starting to feel a little bit of an edge and a little bit, because our companies don't know how to deal with mothers because they've never had to experience it. When I went on
education's the same, which is ironic
they
with dealing with children. They
didn't have maternity leave. It just wasn't the norm. It was just, everybody has children, but they're all men because my team's just majority men. Now they've started to employ women. They're going to start to see, actually, we need to put certain things in place.
Some policies in place that more.
I don't feel guilty
flexible.
not going to work. So nowadays, because my job isn't dictated by my organisation, it's dictated by my customers. And that's on me. So I create that business. And I'm like, having too much business is a good problem to have. But actually now I'm like, slow it down. Because what does that business equate to? Yes, it equates to finances. Yes, it equates to hitting targets. But ultimately, it's still money just going to be spent. You're going to go on holiday, and then outside of working, you've got money. And I'm like, why are you working? You have to ask yourself, is it worth it? If tomorrow was, cut short for you, would you then say, actually, I'm happy with what I've done? I'm happy with what I've imparted on them.
I think mum guilt actually isn't a bad thing. In the sense that I feel like it holds you accountable.
Yeah, it
exactly.
does.
Because there's elements of me that could be like a machine.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I can be working. I've got this goal. I'm going. That mum guilt is needed for me to be like, Jane, pull it back in, rein it in. Your husband needs you. Your children need you. And they need all of you. Slow down. Your health as well. Jane, you need to check out. You need to take yourself away. You need to do this. You need to do this. So I don't think having guilt is a bad thing.
I don't.
Yeah, I think you have to manage it.
Yes.
And it's more about identifying that something isn't quite right.
Yeah.
And once you identify it, you need to make sure you try and correct that situation.
Exactly.
So it's more that rather than having guilt that you wallow in for eternity, you know? So if something doesn't feel right, do something about it. Yeah.
Exactly.
If you need to create more time, do that.
Another coping strategy that I had with not necessarily mum guilt, I think maybe to avoid it as well, was trying to incorporate my children in what I do. So bringing them. So I bring my kids to events. My son is so used to going to events. I remember there was one event I was talking, Tony Blair was there, my son's under the table bored, but I tried to expose him into my work life and my work life involves going to a lot of events. My daughter did the same when I was modelling, brought her with me, so that then when they're at home or they're away from me, they understand.
They know where you are, what
they know
doing.
what I'm doing, they understand,
Yeah.
and they get it. And it's also nice for me as well to have my children there. I think I really actually enjoy, not all the time, but some of the time, having my children there for them to be able to see what mummy's doing. So when mum's away and she's doing all this hard work, it feels nice that you can actually then see the fruits of my labour as well.
Definitely. And I think that really helps them to understand work ethic as well. Because we have a charity, and when we go and do our outreaches in Ghana, my kids come with us as well.
Good.
And last year we did an event just dedicated, an event that they sponsored dedicated to children, and I just want them to know and I want them to be exposed. And the boys were just with the other orphanage children, and they get to experience it firsthand what it means. Because before that, we'll go to Ghana, they'll be like, oh, there's no internet. I'm like, listen, there's real problems. There's real problems. Come, let's go. And so it started like that. But we've been doing that for many, many years. So they have the appreciation. They won't throw their things away. They won't make sure that it's worn out. They say, no, we have to ship this to Ghana. So it's exactly as you're saying, it's very good to expose your children to these things. I bring my kids to the office with me sometimes, even if they're doing filing, just that appreciation that it's a team effort here.
That's so important. It's so true, because funny enough, one of this lady I know, she said to me the other day, oh, I know you had like a rocky relationship with your dad, but you're still so close to him. You do anything for him. You anything he asks for, you're there. You jump at his feet. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I do everything for my kids, and they don't want to know me. Like throughout, she's like, they don't call me, they don't check in on me. She goes, I go weeks and not hear from any of them. And I'm like, she says, what did I do wrong? I gave them everything. And I'm like, don't know, but I know exactly what you just said. My dad exposed me to the graft. He exposed me to why he's doing the things he's doing.
Behind it,
He was giving back to his community. He was doing things in the villages, but he was taking us with him. He would take us with him on, you know, anything he was doing, so we could see the sacrifice that he was making. Okay, he didn't really express the love with us, but then I could see him giving it to that person. But he also told me, they need that. You don't need that. I've given you. He always just say to me, you have everything you need. And actually, he was right. Obviously, it didn't feel like it at the time, but now I'm older. I'm like, yeah, actually, I understand what he's saying. Obviously, he's come from a place where he had nothing. Yeah. And he's given me what he feels, you know, substantial that you need to survive. And these people that he does give everything to, the love, and my dad's such a charming person. If you ever met him, you'd be like, oh, you know, the way you talk about your dad is really... But he's the most charming person. He's so warm. He's so bubbly. He is. He just wasn't... Yeah, he is. But then growing up, he wasn't like that to us. But I could see him do it to other children. So I yearned for it. But I also understood, because he exposed me to, they need that. You don't necessarily need it. So I appreciate him for that. So when the lady's like, how come you don't... Like... I know, I understand. My dad's taught me the understanding.
Now you're there, you get it.
Yeah. Exactly. So no, but 100% agree with you. And you, taking the kids with you. These are like, I'm writing little notes as I'm getting on, and I'm like, hey, my kids, take them with you to the office. When you're cleaning up, make sure they're there, sweeping. 100%. Definitely. It's been real, ladies. But yeah, that was Mum Guilt with the Brown Skin Girls Network. Join us on our next episodes where we discuss everything relationships. Take care.
Bye.
I made that